Today's guest is Kelly Swingler, who is the Burnout Recovery Strategist for leaders who are ready to thrive after burnout. In 2013, Kelly was a high performing and successful executive until she reached burnout. And thinking that she'd learned all there was to know about burnout prevention, she ended up burning out again in 2015. And Kelly has done all of the hard work studying and learning to help her clients recover from burnout and to avoid burnout happening again. And her talks, books, and work are received by audiences from all around the world. So, Kelly, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very well today. I am intrigued and excited to see where
Awesome.
this conversation is going to take us. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, I think.
Well, we're about to find out. So, well,
Yeah.
you could be the judge afterwards on like
Yeah.
how good
Okay.
of a time this actually was.
Okay.
So you can let me know
Deal.
then. And also, I love the fact that you're a burnout coach because as somebody
Mhm.
who's also gone through burnout twice, I know it was one of those things. I'm like, I don't even wish this on like my worst enemy. Like it is not a fun time when you're like in actual like
No,
mental
definitely
and
not.
like the physical like your body just derailed to that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is not a fun experience at all. So I'd love for you to just dive into, I know kind of why you do what you do is in your bio, but contextualize that in whatever way you would like to.
Yeah, I suppose to yeah, so I think to start off with, I never ever thought I would be working kind of full time or talking full time about burnout whatsoever. I'd worked in corporate for all of my career. I had been a kind of, I suppose, I don't know that necessarily strengths as I kind of see them now, but I was, an overworking workaholic, perfectionist, high performer, overachiever, all of these things, right, that I think we're told that we kind of need to be in order to be successful leaders. And I thrived on all of that. I thrived in the corporate environment. I was doing incredible work. I was transforming workplaces and really making, I suppose, what my mission has always been about, which is kind of, making the world a better place to work and stopping this kind of Monday to Friday dying syndrome that so many of us go through. And I genuinely thought all of my career would be in corporate, making workplaces better places to work. And I'd had like what eight promotions over a 7 year period. I had added more than £100,000 to my salary. And I'd done all of this by the time I was 30, right? So I'm kind of 30 years old. I'm on a salary of about £150,000 a year. I work in an organization of kind of 4,000 people. I'm managing a team of kind of 43. I'm responsible for multi-million pound budgets. I'm speaking on stages all over the place. I'm seen to be this incredible leader, incredible director, this kind of rebel and inspiration. And I ended up in the wrong workplace. I got headhunted for a particular role. And on the first day in this job, my gut instinct was telling me to get out. And I completely ignored it. And somebody who had really been intuitive my entire life and really, really paid attention to that gut feel, on this day, I tried to talk myself out of it. Firstly, who leaves a job on their first day? This is absolutely ridiculous. I convinced myself it was first day nerves. I then, the more that this feeling kind of sat with me, I convinced myself that it was imposter syndrome, that it was just the first time that I'd been at a role at this level, that everything would get better, everything would be fine. And it really wasn't. But I think because I wanted to make the world a better place to work in this toxic environment, there was this kind of ego driven part of me that was like, but Kelly, you could be the one to make the change, right? If you could, right, basically, if you could turn it around in this organization, you could do anything after this. And that really became my driver. And so the more toxic it became, the more passionate I became about, I can be the one to change it. I can be the one to turn this stuff around. Burned out really badly in 2013. I became really, really physically, seriously ill. 7 months of varying different hospital admissions. I ended up having to have 2 operations in 48 hours. in the July, because the physical impact that burnout had had on me I'd just begun to develop these really serious health conditions. I'd worked all the way through, refused to believe there was anything wrong with me at all. And it was then in the recovery phase that it was a conversation actually that I'd had with my sons. I twin sons. I had twin sons when I was 20. And my sons then, I was 32 at the time I got to burnout. My sons were 12, had come home from school. And I think, as many of us do, when we are really passionate and committed to our roles, we base our health on our ability to work, right? As if we can keep on working, we must be okay. And my sons had come home. I must have looked really awful because I could see the look of panic on their eyes as they walked in. And my response was, don't worry, mum's going to be absolutely fine. I'm going to be back at work soon, trying to be all positive and upbeat. And my sons kind of took one look at each other, sat on the coffee table in front of me and said, but mum, your job is killing you. And that was I think for all of us that have been to a point of burnout, we have that pinnacle moment. I've spoken to lots of people that talk about that pinnacle moment. Sometimes it's been in the mirror, sometimes it's been in the bathroom, sometimes it's been with a conversation that they had, but that was my pinnacle moment, my moment of something seriously has to change. And I think I just began to realize that I had really started living and leading in a way that was not aligned to my core values and my core strengths. I had been adjusting who I was in order to try and fit into this toxic environment and make this change. And I was back there for just over 3 months, and then just realized, like, this is not the place for me. And just assumed at that time I'd go into another corporate role. But again, my intuition was driving me and telling me that I needed to do something else. So I started my own people consultancy and was just going to focus on people and change, right? I love people. I love change. I was going to be a people and change consultant. It was going to be all fantastic. I then found out 5 months later that my replacement had died whilst away on a leadership residential. And I then discovered that the 3 previous directors to the role that I had been in had all developed really serious health conditions. And there then became my like, what had happened to us? Why had we got ourselves to that point? How could we stop this? And I literally jumped into understanding stress at some of the most profound levels. So I already had very different HR and qualifications. I had a psychology degree, I had an executive coaching qualification, lots of kind of training and facilitation qualifications. But I really dug into things around neuroscience, hypnotherapy, psychotherapy. I was researching stress at so many levels, looking at the impact of stress on the body. I began to research meditation and energy work and Reiki and yoga and Ayurveda and all of this stuff to try and understand the physiology, the unconscious, the conscious part of everything to do with stress. And literally thought I had it all nailed, right? On paper, I can tell you, and still could tell you, anything you want to know about stress, how it's formed, the impact it could have on the body. And then in 2015, I quite literally crashed and burned. And this second burnout didn't make me ill, but it quite literally nearly killed me. The everything that I had going around in my head, like I literally wanted to take my own life on Christmas Eve 2015. But really, that's when all of the training kicked in. I knew which part of the brain I was in. I knew which part I needed to get into. I talked it through. I changed it, and I asked for help in the most vulnerable situation I think that I've ever felt in my entire life. And from there, recognize what I needed to do to change. Recognize that it wasn't recovery from burnout that needed to take place. It was the healing. But I still didn't really want to do burnout for a living until I just started to see the numbers rise and increase. I thought I have to do something about this. And I developed and delivered the world's very first kind of mental wellbeing workshop for HR. I was then asked to transform that for leaders within organizations. So I did that. I was being asked to talk more about burnout and my experience. I was being asked to write more about burnout and my experiences. I've been on podcasts and webinars and talks and stages all over the world talking about burnout. I've written a book on overcoming stress. I wrote my story about overcoming burnout, and it just became, I suppose, if you like, my kind of drive and my mission. And so now I genuinely believe that I did absolutely go through 2 burnouts so that nobody else has to experience it again. And whilst my biggest driver is absolutely about burnout prevention, because I absolutely believe that we can prevent it from happening completely. Whilst burnout, yes, the prevention is a big thing for me, but I also recognize actually that some of us need to get to that point in order to allow us to have our pinnacle moment, to allow us to have that as the wake-up call. And so then it's the recovery that I want to be able to help people with and really help them to thrive and prevent that second burnout. So yeah, I'm passionate about the prevention, but recognize that sometimes we need to hit that rock bottom before we can really kind of live the lives that we're supposed to be living. So it's kind of that all-rounder for me. But yeah, that's what gets me out of bed. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me driven. And that's what I do.
I love it. I mean, from so many angles, to the, depth of your story and all the interwoven aspects of it, to the obvious love you have for like getting people out of this, and like you
Mm-hmm.
said, ideally preventing them for it, because
Yeah.
it's a totally different thing to, like be an expert in something because you find it interesting and you want to help people, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
different level when you are the one who has gone through it, so you can like really empathize with
Mm-hmm.
all of the aspects. So yeah, I love it from all of those angles.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And given that so much of your burnout has been to, you know try and change things and do all of the things, how can I support you today?
Well, let's see. I suppose a big thing for me is I still want to do all of the things. I recognize that I kind of have this aversion to systems and processes.
Mhm.
And I recognize that systems and processes are the things that can make everything a lot easier. So I'm not having to do all of the doing. I think I still find myself at times in moments completely kind of lacking confidence, in terms, I suppose, of some of the delivery. Like burnout, it's not a sexy topic, it's not a glamorous topic, it's not something that lots of people necessarily want to kind of explore. Right? I'm not on stages saying I can help you make £1 million, right? Or I can help you do this, or I can help you achieve all of this fantastic stuff. And most of us just want the fantastic stuff, right? And so I think sometimes when I'm like, I'm absolutely passionate about it, but I think there's two things. Firstly, when we're on the road to burnout, we don't recognize that we're in it. So actually, I can talk about prevention until I'm blue in the face, but actually, lots of people still go, "Well, I'm nowhere near burnout. It's not me." So it makes the prevention piece even harder, and then I start to doubt, "Am I on the right track?" But I think when it comes to the recovery, again, like how do you pitch that, right? How do you pitch it? How do you focus on it? How do you pitch it in a way that gets people to think, "Do you know what, I really want that because I want to thrive and do everything that I want to do." Does that make sense?
It does. So, okay, I guess in that instance, there's so you mentioned, okay, I have this aversion to systems and processes, right?
Yeah.
To kind of systematizing, organizing, maybe delegating all the pieces. So that's like one aspect. And then, so you mentioned lacking confidence, and I think as a subset of that, there's kind of like the marketing messaging struggle of like, well, how do I pitch this? How do I like put this in a way that lands so that like it helps the people that like need to hear it the
Yeah.
most? Like how do I
Yeah.
matter to the people that need to hear me most? So there's going to be a technical solution to that problem as far as like iterating on that message. And like you mentioned, so prevention piece is hard, but then like how do I pitch the recovery? So there's a bit like a lack of clarity there. So my question, I guess my first question to you is, so there's like the marketing message, there's a lack of clarity on like, okay, well, what is it that I actually really want to like talk about? I know those are related. And you said, okay, there's this piece about delivery. Like I lack confidence in the delivery. So is that the delivery of the marketing message, or like your actual fulfillment of the solution, or
I
both?
know. Don't, yeah. In the so I can, as you can probably tell, I can talk about burnout all day long.
Yeah.
and I can talk about what I can help people with. But I think when it comes to talking about what I can help people with, I still think sometimes it feels a bit icky. Like I don't want to come across as salesy. I have this genuine passion that I want to help people. And so I suppose what I'm not doing is kind of some of the really blatant, like asking for the sales stuff. Like this is burnout. This is why I'm passionate about it. This is what I can help you with. Come buy it.
Okay, so like that's the part that feels icky
Just
to you.
feels icky. Yeah, like I genuinely can talk about it all the time. And I do a lot of work one-to-one, and I do a lot of work with very different corporates. I speak on stages all around the world. um
And
and I
sorry,
suppose I'm
so
yeah.
if I cut you off, it's not because I'm trying to cut off what you're saying. It's just there's usually like some sort of red flag or something that I'm
No,
more
go for it.
curious in. So when do you get paid to speak on stages?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Does that feel icky to say, okay, my fee is X for speaking on this, or does it
No,
not?
no,
Okay. So that doesn't feel icky for you to be seen for your expertise.
no.
Okay. But asking for the sale to fix it does.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a connection you've made before or no?
No.
Okay. What's coming up for you when I reflect that back to you?
I'm like, wait, like what's the difference is what's coming up for me,
I
right?
agree.
What's the
What is the
difference?
difference? Yeah, that's exactly what I want to know as well.
Yeah, what is the difference? um what's the difference? I suppose when it's from a marketing perspective, that feels more like I'm pitching to to you. Does that make sense? So here's my thing, here's how much you can buy it for. Feels more kind of market trader pitching. Whereas actually, if you say to me, Kelly, I want you to come and speak to this audience, you've come to me, okay, yes, here's my fee. Okay, deal done. Let's sign it. Here's where you deliver the talk.
Right. So I've given you permission to pitch me.
Yeah, I think that's the difference.
Okay. So why is that relevant? Like I've given you permission to tell me your fee. You are now comfortable. What's the difference when it's reversed?
Good question. What is the difference? I
What do you not have permission for when you are the one pitching?
I suppose I'm not being given permission. So I suppose that's the internal head talk, right? Because I have permission. I have no issue again talking about whatever it is that I want to talk about on my social media, right? I've always been seen to be a bit of a rebel. Will say it like it is, comes across as sometimes quite blunt, quite straight talking, no messing around. And yet there's something in that. So from that perspective, I will say whatever it is that I want to say, but there is something about the kind of asking for the sale bit that then just feels, oh, that's not what you should be using social media for. Like surely you should just be helping people or talking about your message. Or
Right. So is it also true that if you ask for payment, that's not helpful?
it's also true. If you'd have asked me that even 2 weeks ago, I would have said absolutely not helpful. No. But again, I've been doing lots of work on myself. I'm always doing lots of work on myself. But I think something has shifted over the last couple of weeks in that, yes, it is helpful because actually, if you need what I've got, you can very quickly make a decision about, is that what I want? Is it Kelly that I want to work with? And is it Kelly that I could either afford to work with or have that idea? So I think, yes, in some ways, I think it is helpful
So would it
because
also be
people
fair
then
to
know what's
say,
available.
okay, so would it also be fair to say that you understand that intellectually, but you don't believe it emotionally?
Again, a couple of weeks ago, I would have absolutely said yes. Am I 100% there with that shift yet? No. I mean, even this morning, I've been asked to pitch for quite a big piece of work, which I've done. And no word of, like, I probably sat here for 20 minutes. I had it all done and looked at all of the figures, and I kept, well, you can't do that. You can't send that. You can't send that. And it was like, of course I can. But I sat here for 20 minutes having this debate with myself about whether I could charge what I always charge for a piece of work, because for what they want, it's a really big figure. And I'm like, well, then they're not going to pay that. But actually, it's a big figure because of how many people they want me to work with. Whereas I would have had no issue sending that off if it were for one or two people.
Okay. So let's just say same example, right? So it's the same proposal, right? Logically, you know that the price you pitched is the right price based off of all the things, the workload, the
Yeah.
deliverables, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And what would have been actually, okay, you don't need to use specific figures. I guess what I'm asking is, what's the difference in feeling between if it was for 1 to 2 people versus whatever 30 people? What's the difference in the feeling? Like, one is comfortable, one isn't. Why?
Think it just felt, seeing those numbers on paper just felt, what did it feel? I mean, it was definitely it and that's, I suppose that's the difference. Physically, so I can tune in physically to what feels right and what doesn't feel right. Physically, it felt fine, right? It felt really good. It was like lots of excitement, and this is amazing, and this will be fantastic, and this is what we're going to do there. But it was mentally that it's far too expensive. Like, you can't, like, that nobody's going to say yes to that. Nobody's going to pitch, like, nobody's going to agree to that. Nobody's going to. The reality is they've already come back to say yes, we'll do it. So there's nothing wrong with what I pitched.
Okay. And what does it mean
agreed.
about you to ask for this large sum?
Okay, I think on the reflection, I think there is definitely that feeling of worthiness. But again, I think reflecting on this over quite a lot of the last few weeks, I think there is also something in just receiving, full stop. In that I have always been the one helping, giving, supporting, doing all of that stuff for lots and lots of other people. And I think it's only literally in recent years that I have allowed myself to begin to receive some of that back. And I think there is still something that feels like, it's like if I feel like I'm about to receive like something that could be really awesome, right? Whether it's a big amount of money, whether it's a gift, whether somebody wants to do something really nice for me, there is that total feeling of discomfort that's they're like, I'm not worthy. And then what do I have to give you back? Like, I have to then double my efforts or double my energy or double something. Because if you've done that, I need to do something even bigger for you, which is rubbish, particularly when it comes to proposals, right? Proposal is, this is what I say I'm doing, and this is what you pay me for. Like, that's an equal energy exchange. And I feel that, but my head doesn't acknowledge that yet.
Right. So yeah, I understand 100%. You're in that limbo state of like, I know where this should be going, but my nervous system hasn't caught up. There's still something unsafe about this particular thing. So I understand that completely. And a big part of burnout is exactly like this pattern, right? Like, I find significance in always being able to be helpful, right? That is how I figured out how to be safe at a very young age. So there's still parts of you that are rooted in that, right? That find significant from over delivering, that find significance from being the
absolutely.
one that constantly gives. And there's also, I think, a lot of remaining narratives and aspects of you that don't find it safe to receive.
Yeah, and again, if we take it specifically back to burnout, kind of 10 years and 8 years ago, all of the science, all of the data tells us that actually burnout can have the same impact on the brain as trauma. And actually the impact that it has on our decision-making abilities and our decision to set goals and our ability to move forward and all of those sorts of things can be hampered. And again, I'm fully aware of that. So when I feel it, and again, I think that's I want to say like a bit of an inner argument that I continue to have with myself, because as I said at the beginning, I was always a really, really intuitive person.
Mm-hmm.
My intuition on day one of that role said get out, and I ignored it. And my intuition was there every day for 6 months, like get out, get out, get out. And I'm like, no, shut up, stop it. And then it's like my head took over, which wasn't my normal way of working. But there's also then this kind of, well, I like, which bit do I trust? Right?
Mm-hmm.
If my intuition were really that strong, something would have changed and I would have gotten out of there. But if I'm supposed to now trust my head was potentially the part of me that got me to that point in the first place. So there is that still kind of inner argument. So even, as I said, when I was doing this pitch this morning, everything intuitively, physiologically, everything is saying this is a great proposal, absolutely send it through. As I said, they've come back to say yes, but my head is still, even when they came back with yes, my head is still like, wow, they still might change their minds.
So what would your intuition be saying now about why it's unsafe for you to receive?
I think because again, it's never been my natural state. I think since I came out of the womb, really, it has always been about everything that I have done for other people.
Okay. So even just if you pause there, because
Yeah.
while that is true and I understand it, it's also part of your story,
Mm-hmm.
which is the part of your head that perpetuates this, right? Like you
Yes.
said it yourself, like I could talk about burnout in all ways, etc. And that's also a great way to keep you from actually exploring the parts of yourself you need to explore to actually dive into this and understand it further from like
Absolutely.
you. So
Yes.
same question again, intuitively speaking, if you tune in right now, what's unsafe about receiving?
I think that's just it. It's like it's not safe. Like that's what comes up. Like it's not safe to receive. It's almost like receiving comes with a condition. Like there's a condition attached to the receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas actually, if I'm giving, I'm giving because I love to give. But there's something there that's like, well, other people don't do that, right? Other people do it because they've got hidden agendas, or they're trying to sell you something, or they're trying to con you out of something, or they're trying to do all of this stuff. Like that's why other people give. And
Right.
again,
So,
I know that's not right, but
right.
intellectually, that's where my head goes to.
So just to play devil's advocate then, I know you are very good at giving because you have a career behind you that proves it and then the results to
Mm-hmm.
prove it. But I love to give. Or if I'm giving, then it's like it's because I love it. Is it also true
Mm-hmm.
that you're giving because you're uncomfortable to receive?
Um, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where the distortion of being a giver begins to manifest as lying. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean that with love, and I don't mean that with
Oh
judgment.
no, no, and I completely understand. Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely understand.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So I love to give is a great bow to put on the
Mm-hmm.
distortion of your gift because it again allows you to achieve or allows your subconscious to achieve the goal of never having you to look at why your core wounding is really it is safe to it is unsafe to receive,
Mm-hmm.
right? which
Mm-hmm.
also then makes a lot of your giving, part of that giving is also lying, right? Because it's not necessarily that I'm enjoying giving you this much, it's that I'm trying to keep from not being uncomfortable to receive. Right?
Yes, that it's, I suppose it's keeping that part hidden, isn't it? And again, I suppose if everybody sees you as always being the person that's giving, then you continue to be seen as the nice person that's always doing all of this stuff for everybody else.
Correct. Right? Like I need you so that I can give to you, so that
Mm-hmm.
I can continue to maintain the identity of being nice, the
The nice
giver,
person. Yeah, yeah,
etc.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So you mentioned, and we all operate this way, but it's like, no, like I'm genuinely like I like to give. I don't like to be like those manipulative people that don't like or aren't like genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Yet here is our manipulation happening to
Yeah,
keep us safe.
yeah,
Right? So okay, so
yeah.
that's landing. So if you're looking at this now more globally, right? It's not safe to receive,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not worthy of receiving,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can't, or I'm not comfortable with asking for the sale when I need to do it, or at least,
Mm-hmm.
there's friction there.
Yeah.
How are all these things creating problems in your business?
I'm like, for that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing.
And you
So
can
I
take it
think
one by one. You don't
for
have to do it
yeah, so I
cumulatively.
think there's one in which for a good number of years, I have had this idea that I want to be able to create, I suppose, more of a kind of membership community
Mm-hmm.
whereby people that either don't have the time, the resources, or the money in order to work with me one to one or in some of the corporates, they can access all of my teachings and all of the stuff that I work on, as well as having this safe and supportive community. And there's one part of me that's like, just do it for free, right? And I'm looking at all of these hours that I'm going to be spending in this membership community and how much it's going to cost me and where all this time and effort and energy and money is coming from. And thinking, well, I'm gonna have to charge for it. And then there's the other part of it. So you can't charge for it because the whole point is that you need to be helping, right? You need to be giving all of these people all of this stuff. So I think the membership community is definitely one. Again, I think that's coming to a head now. I finally spoke to my partner about it last week, and he was just like, "This is an absolute no-brainer, right? Do it, set a price, and if you want to have a lower price and a higher price, do it. But actually, your expertise matters. You don't have to keep giving, right? You're already giving enough of yourself." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm kind of starting to make some stuff with that. But again, I think that's my natural. I mean, like we said, from a talk perspective, people will ask, "Do you want the talk?" My initial reaction is, "Yeah, I'll just do it," without agreeing fees, contracts, anything. So just, of course, I'd love to talk to people about it. I charge for my talks, but again, that took me a long time to get to. And again, I think from a coaching perspective, I'm always very open. All of the prices for everything I do is on my website. But I think I go to, if ever there is an inquiry, my initial reaction is, I'm charging too much money. People won't be able to afford to work with me, and I need to be able to offer them some discount. That's my first go-to. And yet there's probably very few people that have ever said no. Some people have said not yet and come back to work with me at a later date. But actually there's nobody that's, and again, like this proposal this morning and the proposal that I did last week and the week before are all very similar. Like nobody's saying no. Everybody's saying, yes, we love what you're doing. Where do we write you a check? So again, I suppose what I'm telling myself versus what I'm seeing, what the evidence is telling me, are two completely different things.
Mm-hmm. So you got one thing where it's like, I'm not actually creating a membership that would not only make me more money, but would help more people. And then I'm probably undercharging and or offering discounts when not even necessary.
Yep.
Like that's kind of the two main
Yep.
problems from this. Okay. So if you even extrapolate that further, how is this impacting, what you're creating and who you're impacting?
Um, in terms of what I'm creating. Well, again, I suppose in terms of impact, I'm impacting myself.
So I guess, how are you impacting yourself?
In that I kind of always feel like I have to be working harder, delivering more, pushing more, putting more content out there, whether it's books, blogs, articles, podcasts, posts, videos. I mean, there's really no content that I'm not putting out there. I spend a lot of time creating free resources for people, or like to go on the website, because I think the more free resources I've got, the more people that I can be helping. But actually, all of that is then, I suppose, a bit of an avoidance tactic from just go and ask for the sale, right? Just put a post out there saying, I've got space for this, or I'm doing this workshop, or I'm doing this program, or here's my new membership. Come work with me. Here's the link for you to sign up.
Right. It's probably, again, leaving a lot of money on the table.
A lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
also means, right, like there's a big gap between how much you're allowing yourself to receive. Like,
Receipt.
you
Yeah,
are the
hugely.
bottleneck to the receiving. So
Yes,
it's reinforcing further the
I
worthiness,
am.
which is
Yes.
reinforcing, I got to give more because clearly it's not enough. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm glad that that's landing for you. And we started this conversation you saying, I have this aversion to systems and processes.
Yes.
What do systems and processes, when implemented well, take away?
What do they take away? I suppose that in some cases they take away some of that. Well, they take away a lot. They take away the stress. They take away some of the kind of mindset stuff. Actually, if somebody can just click buy and here they go and job done, I don't need to be involved. I don't need to be
Okay,
thinking, I
but
need to
pause right
discount, I
there,
need to.
right?
Yeah.
I don't need to be involved.
Yeah.
Effective systems and processes take away, I need to be involved. If you
Yes.
are not involved, what are you not directly doing?
I'm not giving.
Correct. I'm not hand holding. I'm not being available. I'm not helping,
Yeah.
i.e., I'm not getting significance out of being the martyr and the savior to all of the people in my world. I don't have the direct
Yeah.
reinforcement of that win,
Yeah.
i.e., I take away the continued reinforcement of my unhealed wounding.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you really have an aversion to systems and processes, or do you just have a deep need to be the one that is constantly helping?
Um, Maybe a little bit of both. I think for me, I mean, the systems and processes stuff are probably, if we kind of repick it, not so much an aversion to it, but it's not, I suppose it's not one of my strengths. I have lots of people around me that do, but because it's not my strength, and there needs to be some input from me in order to say this is what it's going to look like. It's the input from me that is then being avoided. And
Right.
so it's twofold. I'm avoiding it based on what we've just said, because if it is automated, I'm not involved. I'm not doing the giving. So there's maybe that stumbling block, but there's also, even just the thought of having a conversation with somebody about what needs to be automated and what it needs, it's not my zone of genius. I want to stay high level. I want to be doing all of the stuff that really kind of lights me up. And if I need to sit and talk processes with you, it's just not my thing. But is
Right.
it not my thing because of that aversion? I think maybe there's a little bit of both.
Yeah. And again, this is notwithstanding the fact that, like, this is just a part of the business you don't like, but you understand it has to be done, right? Like,
Yes.
most people don't like accounting, but like, we all know we have to like prepare our taxes, but like, so we'll get
Yes.
through it. So I understand
Yeah.
that there's that element of that
Yeah.
piece. And you literally have just shared the solution to that, which is like, well, I actually know a lot of people that can help me with this. I just actually have to pull the trigger to like get those
Yeah,
people
I've got
involved.
members of my team that have been
Right.
kind of
And that's
nagging
kind
me
of
for
what I'm getting
ages.
at, right? It's the
Yeah.
avoidance of doing the solution you already know you need to
Yes.
do. And
Yes.
my invitation to you and what I'm reflecting back to you is like executing on the solution you know you can do here
Hmm.
is a big key threat to some core patterns
Mm.
that are right now the linchpin to all of the bottlenecks of your business, right? I I'm not allowing myself to have all like revenue that is right in front of my face that would keep me more stable and constant. Look, so let's just say
Hmm.
the membership
Hmm.
example, right? Not allowing myself to ask for as consistently or boldly or whatever the sales that are already
Hmm.
coming to me and or potentially giving unnecessary discounts. So again, requiring you to work more and executing on the solution that can take away a lot of administrative friction because again,
Hmm.
it removes me from this. It's like if you were to do all of those things, like, do you see how uncomfortable your subconscious would be? Because everywhere around you is this reflection of fear. It's so like I
Yeah,
can't
and
fully
also what's coming
perceive
up as you're
embody.
talking is like, well, that would all be really easy. And again, like, you can't receive easily, right? It
Yeah,
has to be hard work,
100%.
right? You have to be working hard
Yeah, it has to
in
be
order to
hard. Yeah,
receive. Yeah. So again, I've got like my inner voice is like, oh God, no, that would be far too easy. Like we don't want ease. It's got
correct.
to be challenging. It's got to be difficult. It's got to be really, really hard.
Because there's also significance there. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know it's a
yeah,
limiting belief and it also feeds the identity, right?
yeah.
It cannot be easy. I cannot accept the
Mhm.
easy solution because then it's not very like I haven't given enough to actually earn that. So again, it's also reinforcement of that
Yeah,
unworthiness. So it's a good
yeah.
catch there as well. So if we now change gears a little bit, like who would you be if you lost the ability to be unworthy?
Who would I be if I lost the ability to be unworthy? I would be the warrior that I know I am here to be. I would be an absolute driving force. I'd be the ultimate leader. I would be showing a completely different way of doing things. I suppose I would ultimately be the person that could never, ever, ever reach burnout again. Because she would have implemented everything that she knows she needs to implement.
Yep. And just with that last point, given what's been brought up as patterns right now,
Yeah.
do you think there is still a risk for you to do a third bout of burnout should this not change?
No, I think I'm strong enough and I know enough about myself now to not get to that point.
Beautiful.
But I suppose, again, from kind of what we've unpicked today, there is still, and I keep thinking I've dealt with this, and then it's like, oh, clearly something needs to change, like shift. But it's still also like there is that part of me that is still in the fear
Mm-hmm.
of getting to that third burnout, even though intuitively and instinctively I know that will never ever happen.
Yes. And I'm glad because I kind of had the same impression as well. And I'm glad that that's also
Mm,
reinforced by how you think. I think then the better thing to explore in the invitation is now the next level of that. Because it's like, okay, so not being in burnout, preventing burnout and getting out of burnout and ensuring I don't fall into burnout is kind of like
mm,
I'm ensuring I don't fall into the hole,
mm.
which is different than navigating the world like never even worried about falling into the hole. So I guess the next level of you to explore these patterns is can I have a business of peace and full, genuine
Mm.
fulfillment without letting go of these unworthiness patterns?
Yeah, and again, I've been reflecting on this over the last kind of 6 months or so in terms of the post burnout work that I do with people. Actually, all of that is about helping them to thrive, right? Be able to
Yeah.
create their best lives, do everything that they want to be able to do. And yet it almost feels like there is, like, somewhere along the line there's a lack of integrity, right? Because that's what I want, that's what I'm creating. And if I look at my entire life now, it's like, yeah, I've got that, right? I'm content, I'm happy, I've got everything that I could possibly want. And at the same time, there is that part of me that's holding myself back from that thriving next
Correct.
stage. So again, from that integrity piece, from clients, future clients, and whatever, I could talk about burnout all day long. But actually, there is somewhere is that resistance internally to be, I suppose, openly talking about that thriving after burnout for clients, because it doesn't feel like I've allowed myself, for all of the reasons that we've discussed and probably lots more, it doesn't feel like I'm kind of like unlocking that part for myself. So I can't openly talk about that with the work I do with clients, even though
Correct.
I do that with clients. That's exactly what I do with clients, and all of my clients will tell you exactly the same thing. But I'm like, well, I can't possibly say that on social media because that's a lie, and it's not. That's what I help other people do. But there's that, it's that integrity. I need to be living it and showing it in order for me to be talking about it. I would never talk about anything that I haven't, I'm not, I would never pitch, I can teach you how to make, a 10 million pound business. Right. If I haven't got 10 million pound business, I'm not going to be telling you how to do it.
100%. And I listen, I love the walking your own talk bit. Like I'm all about that as well. And my invitation for you to add the nuance to it. Like I agree with everything. And
Mm,
the next step of your evolution isn't to, be in the space of conquering burnout because you have. It's
mm,
actually evolving into your next level of thriving.
yeah.
What is
Yeah.
it like to perform at the level that I did while burning out, while also experiencing genuine fulfillment, peace, happiness, and expansion for expansion's sakes, not
Mm,
expansion out of unworthiness sake. It's
yeah.
like the next step of your evolution. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you everything, and really just anchor it in. This is not about like I'm not in integrity, so therefore
Mm,
XYZ. It's like, no, like I also get to have my next level, and my next level of healing is synonymous with the next level of my business, which is usually how it's going to
yeah.
work for conscious
Yeah.
entrepreneurs anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to add that in as
Yeah.
a
Thank you.
reflection.
I've got all of that written in my notebook. All of the
Beautiful.
things that I've been unpicking over the last few weeks. So thank you very much for clarifying that bit.
Absolutely. So then just to kind of move this in towards a close,
Mm,
like if who you would be without unworthiness is I'd be the warrior that I know I could be. I'd be the driving
mhm.
force of this business, the ultimate leader that I know I can be, which again, very synonymous with what we just spoke about, showing a different way to do things, right? Living what I'm showing. Would never reach for burnout again. What would you create from that space?
My heart says this is how I would genuinely be able to start to change the world of work, that I went into my initial career in 1998 saying that this is what I wanted to be able to do, right? This is how we change the world of work. This is how we get leaders to live as their true selves. This is how we eliminate toxicity. This is how we eliminate fear. This is how we eliminate burnout. This is how we encourage and demonstrate to people that they can thrive in their careers and do all of the stuff that they want without all of the rubbish like burnout and fear and toxicity that comes with it. So I suppose my gut reaction, my heart reaction to that is that I could actually then start to do what I said I was going to do in 1998 at like 18 years old. Like, I want to change the world of work. Like, I could actually start to do it.
Yeah, because you're walking more embodied in your current version
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 110%. That's a beautiful, beautiful vision. So yeah, that's I think that's a great spot to kind of move this into a close because such a beautiful vision. So Kelly, thank you very much for allowing yourself to be witnessed in this way and go through this exploration. Why don't you just close us off then and let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you. The floor is yours for that.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me for today and opening up opening up the space. So I didn't quite know where it was going to go. So thank you very much for holding that space in the questions. I mean, the best place to find me, ultimately, I work with busy and overwhelmed leaders to help them move through this and to create incredible lives for themselves. You, again, I suppose all of my free resources you'll find over on my website at kellyswingler.com. But the best place to find me really is to connect via LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. That's where I do most of conversations, videos, live conversations, interviews, and all sorts of very different things on there. So yeah, but you'll find me on LinkedIn is where I'm most active. And then yes, all of my free stuff that everybody can get their hands on is at kellyswingler.com.
Love it. Well, I guess get your hands on it before it becomes a membership.
Absolutely,
You
because
have to pay
it's
for it,
going
right?
to do soon. Yes, yes.
Love it. Well, yeah, we'll include all that in the show notes as always. But
Thank
Kelly,
you.
yeah, thank you very much for being on. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.